Friends, it's Everything Mayer. I'm your host, Tom Butwin. This is your favorite John Mayer fan podcast. And today, we're going to pinpoint the moment when I realized John Mayer is a legend. And obviously, this is not it's not scientifically determined. You can argue with me, and I want you to. In fact, this is one of those episodes. It's more philosophical. I want you to tell me in the comments of the YouTube channel, the YouTube video of this show, when you realized what I'm going to explain to you that I realized. And that is that John Mayer is an undisputable legend, songwriter, guitar player, pop star, rock star, you name it. If you want to support the show, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. It tells me that most of you who watch this are not subscribed. So you could help me out by doing that. It's free. If you want to go the extra mile, you can join as a member on the YouTube channel for extra content and to support my efforts here. So let's talk about this. Now, I know some of you you're going to pick out certain albums, maybe songs, maybe it's Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, maybe it's the John Mayer Trio record. I know a lot of people point to that. I know people point to Continuum just as an album as a whole, as to like when John Mayer sort of arrived in the undisputable, that he is a master of his instrument, a master songwriter, vocalist, live performer, all of that. But I can pinpoint it to the exact moment when it clicked. I know where I was, I know what I was doing, and we're going to listen to what I was listening to. It started, and this is not the moment, but it started when I heard Waiting on the World to Change as the first single from Continuum. Now, I was already a huge John Mayer fan. I was trading bootlegs of his, Eddie's Attic days and listening to the Inside Wants Out EP and all of that. So I was fairly familiar. And then obviously the first two albums I was a big fan of as well. And you have to remember, during this time period, today we have Instagram. So you get fed. There are accounts, great accounts dedicated to his solos. You get any iconic moment that happens in a concert immediately when it happens. That didn't exist in 1999, 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when we get into the Continuum era. YouTube only existed in 2005, so people they didn't have the mechanism to record these things. So you have to understand, like, the times I was listening to Mayer were mostly studio records. Now, some of the as-is live recordings from Soundboard Audio that he put out started to come out around this time. But really, when it comes down to it, the reference points were the records, the studio records. And up until Continuum, we had the Inside Wants Out EP, we had Room for Squares, and we had Heavier Things. Now, when I heard Waiting on the World to Change as the first single, obviously I hadn't heard anything else from that record, and it was very different. I remember the experience of hearing the drums off the top, and then, the vibe of the song was just very, it's like Marvin Gaye almost. Like, it's very different than everything that I had associated with him before, which was, still, it wasn't just the singer-songwriter acoustic stuff. It was the Stevie Ray Vaughan inspired electric guitar playing as well. So this was a departure for certain. And, also we had the John Mayer Trio record, if I have that in the proper order, I believe I do, 2005 on that one, to reference as well. So Waiting on the World to Change was a kind of, it was not what I was expecting. Let's just say that. I remember I heard that on the radio, which for you young ones out there is not something that you're probably going to experience these days, hearing your favorite artist or one of your favorite artists' new single on the radio, unplanned, uncommanded. I did not ask for it. It appeared and it played. And I remember exactly where I was driving. It was just incredible that I can remember that. But that was the impact that it had. But that wasn't the moment that I realized that Mayer had sort of transcended. Okay. That came when I got the record, when I bought Continuum when it came out. And yes, I went to the store and I bought the CD. I did that all the way up through the last, I hate to admit this. Actually, no, I think the last Mayer CD I bought was Search for Everything. I was going to say that it was Paradise Valley, but it was Search for Everything. But since then, I don't have a hard copy of Sob Rock. I do need to get one. But the moment that I realized this was when I popped in the CD Continuum, and I'm checking the track listing right now because I want to make sure that my memory is not failing me. And first track on the record, Waiting on the World to Change. Already heard that. I was into it. Cool. Played it again. That goes right into I Don't Trust Myself with Loving You. Cool sound. I was a young guitar player. I had no idea what was happening with that guitar tone on I Don't Trust Myself with Loving You, which is super cool. At the time, it was just like, oh, wow, I don't think I've ever heard anything like that before. Very interesting. Then, and this is the moment, Belief starts. And there's a moment in Belief, and I've isolated it here using the Apple Logic Pro stem splitter, which does a decent job of splitting up all the instruments. It puts all the guitars together, so we have that. And I left some keyboard in there for some context. But this is the moment when I realized John Mayer had arrived. And I'll tell you why after this. There you go. The Belief solo. That is when I actually audibly said in my car something to the effect of, oh my God, because of a few things. Not only is it an incredible guitar solo, but the guitar tone, immediately I was like, I don't know how to describe this, but I knew like that's the sound. And that's the sound, and this is where the legend part comes in, that will make him one of the very few guitar players that is instantly recognizable based on their guitar tone and what they're playing. And in my opinion, when that happened, when that solo was recorded and when it was set in stone on a record, that is what happened. All of a sudden, that was the calling card. Yes, he had played unbelievable stuff on the Mayer Trio records. There's some great guitar moments on the first two albums. But Belief and that solo is when he became a legend, in my opinion. And, there are very few people on an instrument, any instrument, doesn't have to be guitar, that is not a voice that you can instantly recognize who they are playing. And that's it. Like if do the Mayer thing. Yes, you could do Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. You can do all the Hendrix double stoppy. This is guitar player talk type stuff. But and certainly that solo is Clapton inspired, Eric Clapton inspired for sure. There's guitar tones that Clapton was getting in the late 80s, early 90s that are very similar to that. But and while there are some Clapton-ish riffs in there and licks, it's, no offense to Eric Clapton by any means, he's a legend as well. But Mayer really, really, really takes it to another level there. Now, you might be saying, I mean, he's played way better solos than that. Way better solos. Even on Belief, he's played better solos. What about the Abbey Road recording? What about Austin City Limits? And you'd be right. The song, just like a lot of his other studio recordings, went to different places live. I would argue, if you listen to the end of Slow Dancing in a Burning Room on Continuum, after more than almost 2 decades of hearing that song go to a place live that's just epic and unbelievable, I know you're going to hate me for it, but I feel like the end of that song on the recording is a little bit anticlimactic because it hadn't grown into that yet. But you have to, this goes back to what I had available, what we all had available at the time that Continuum came out. We did not have Instagram. We did not have YouTube. We did have bootlegs, and tapes that were passed around and that sort of thing. But that was further between. A lot of them were poor quality. An iPhone video at a concert these days is pretty incredible what you can get out of it. So the only reference point we had for this type of thing was what he was putting onto records. Come Back to Bed from Heavier Things live it was great. It was one of the only times that he really stretched out on the electric guitar back then, because so much of the stuff was focused around the acoustic guitar, and that's what got him on the map. And he was finding ways to bring the epic blues guitar inspired solos in, but on a record it hadn't happened yet, in my opinion. Wheel on one of the best of his recorded solos is on Wheel, which is the last track on Heavier Things. There's a lot of really good moments, but nothing you knew if you had seen him live that he was capable of it. But on a record, if that was your only reference point, and again in 2004, 5, and 6, that was for most people, even very, very dedicated fans, that was all they had. They weren't going to nerd level like me, going on to, the file transfer sites and trying to get full shows. And I had, CDs in the mail that I was mailing back and forth between friends. It was a different time period. So that is why the Belief solo was so impactful. So I ask you, what was your moment that you, and it could be recent, because I know there are some people who are not, they're not from the Eddie's Attic, Inside Wants Out era. Maybe you weren't even born yet at that point, which is super cool because it means you're a young fan. But what is the moment? And this is assuming you agree with me. Maybe you don't agree with me. Maybe you don't think he's on the Mount Rushmore of singer-songwriter guitar players. But I think he is. So, and I suspect that you do too. But I have this distinct moment that I remember. It was the Belief solo where I was like, he has catapulted himself into the realm of guitar players that just from their playing. It is a small group of people: Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana, Eddie Van Halen. I mean, there's Buddy Guy, B.B. King. It's a decent sized list, but not every guitar player gets that. We're all born with a unique voice, whether we sing or not. It's like, that's your voice, and you can develop it for speaking, for singing, acting, whatever. But to take an instrument and have a voice develop on that instrument is very rare. You hear a lot of people play online, a lot of great guitar players, and they emulate other people. They emulate their influences, just like Mayer did. But they don't, myself included, you don't ever I don't have a voice on the guitar. No one's going to say, oh, that's Tom playing guitar. They're going to be like, oh, that's somebody trying to play like X, Y, or Z. That's just someone trying to play like Mayer, or trying to play like Dave Matthews, or trying to play like B.B. King. Like, it's not going to, no one says that, and the majority of musicians are that way. And there's some great musicians out there who are that way. That's why it's in that extra just stratosphere where you have players who are recognizable on their instrument. Mayer is that. It's clear to us now. 2025, we already know that. This is not groundbreaking news. But I put myself back into that time period, and it was when Continuum came out, and I heard Belief, and I heard the solo, that Mayer became a legend. And the applause is not for me completing a thought and a point. It's because we've reached the after dinner mint. And if you've been here before, you know the after dinner mint. It's where we let our hair down and we don't worry so much about keeping your attention, because your attention matters so much at the beginning of these YouTube videos. And I do appreciate all of you who are watching. I know we got a lot of new people here over the last couple of videos, which is insane. This thing has gone to a place that I didn't expect it. It's still very small in the grand scheme of things, but I look forward to welcoming hopefully a lot of new people as we move through the fall shows and into hopefully new music and a new record at some point. So go back and check out last week's episode. I talk about my theory as to why a certain song, I won't spoil it so you actually go watch it, is going to be the first single. And it was with the help of one of you out there that we came to that conclusion, which I'm very curious to see if that plays out. If it does, we're going to look legendary. It's going to be amazing. If it doesn't, we're going to just, get a pat on the back and say, we love that you're so into this, but you were wrong. We shall see. Only time will tell. Let's see. What other administrative things do we need to address? We're going to do another giveaway. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet. That's all I want to say. I can't say anything else because there's one thing I want to say, but there are rules and laws and things that prevent me from structuring a giveaway in that particular way. So we'll see. We'll talk about it. But I have, thanks to another phenomenal fan and listener of the show, some stuff that I think is going to be really cool to give away to you, which I'm very excited about. It's super fun. So stay tuned for that. If you do want to support the channel and the show beyond just watching, which is more than enough, there are memberships available on the YouTube channel, and you can get some extra content, some behind the scenes things, stories about when I met Mayer, when I interviewed Paul Reed Smith, and I will continue to compile things and put them in there. And I just have to say thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for all the messages. Thank you for all the comments. I'm doing my best to get to them. If you're a member, I will respond to your comment first. So I'm really trying to stick to that. But yeah, thank you very much for all of the support. It's just like, it's weird for me to thank you, because it's like, I'm not, we're just hanging out, nerding out on an artist and their music. So it's not like sometimes I feel funny because it's like, I'm not writing anything. I'm not singing. I'm not even performing. Like, I have all this stuff behind me on this channel. I don't use any of it. I just talk. So it's just, but I do appreciate it, because I know there's a million things you can watch. I know you're here for Mayer. I'm here for Mayer and all of his music as well. But it's just super cool because so many of you are so nice and kind, which is not what, you would be surprised. The dust that gets kicked up on the internet, particularly in the guitar world that I exist in normally. If you want more of me, I do have my own channel under Tom Butwin. And if you want even more, I'm on premierguitar.com and their YouTube channel quite a bit. So check me out there. In the meantime, cue the theme. That is me playing on the theme, by the way. Some of you have asked that. I don't have a name for it. It's just a rip-off of the end of I Guess I Just Feel Like. And I've played the intro live once. Maybe I'll do it again. Drop me a comment if you want me to do the intro live with a guitar. It makes the beginning of the show considerably more challenging, but I have fun doing it anyway. So, back at the end of another episode, end of another week. Hope you all have a good one. We'll talk soon. This has been Everything Mayer. I'm your host, Tom Butwin. See you next week. Had to drag it out there so we get the end of the song.